The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Jesus said to his disciples, "Be watchful, be alert. You do not know when the time will come. It is like a man traveling abroad. He leaves home and places his servants in charge, each with his own work, and orders the gatekeeper to be on the watch. Watch, therefore. You do not know when the Lord of the house is coming, whether in the evening or at midnight or at the cockcrow or in the morning. May he not come suddenly and find you sleeping. What I say to you, I say to all, watch." The Gospel of the Lord. So here is a question. Don't look at your watch, and especially your phone. But here's the question. What time is it? What time is it? And so Jesus tells us in this gospel today to be watchful, be alert. We hear that word watch several times. You do not know when the time will come. So as we begin the shortest possible Advent season, Christmas Eve is only a month from today. The question is, how do we deal with the reality of time? So time is really a fascinating thing. Sometimes time runs through our hands like sands through an hourglass. At other times, it crawls glacially across even just an afternoon as you wait for a doctor's test results. A day takes forever when you're a kid waiting for Christmas. But the years are over in the blink of an eye when we sometimes realize with astonishment that my life, maybe lots of people's lives at this moment in time here in church, is a lot behind you, maybe mostly behind you. So science tells us that time is simply the measure of change. If nothing ever changed, we would have no way to observe the existence of time at all. But because things do change, seasons, the weather, like today from yesterday, the natural world, us, we know that there is such a thing as time, even though we never have enough time. And for all its capricious behavior, the one thing we do know about time is that sooner or later, we will run out of it. The definition of our world is that it is finite. And the definition of humanity is that it's mortal. Time changes, time passes, we die. The main problem with time isn't that it passes, but that very often we don't know what time it is. So the Psalms say that our lives are like a sigh. What is a sigh? Well, the Psalms define life by saying people get 70 years or 80 years for those who are strong. But we know that some die young as children, even in the womb. I heard about that from a young man this morning who was always here at the 7:30 Mass when he told me he and his wife lost their baby the other day at 7 weeks. This past week, we had 5 funerals here. 2 were in their 80s, 1 in the 90s, another 73, another 44. This week, a very active, devoted parishioner would be buried from here at age 39. He came to Mass here at this particular Mass all the time. He knew that he was dying since last spring from horrible brain bone surgery. And he made all his arrangements over the summer. The cemetery plot, the tombstone at St. Charles Cemetery, the hymns for the funeral mass this week, over the summer with his wife. He knew, not the exact time, but he knew the time. No one is guaranteed 70 or whatever years. None of us is guaranteed more than the present hour. A clock tells us about nothing except the position of the sun, and nothing at all about where we stand in regard to eternity. That might sound a little spooky, but it's also honest. And so as the church year begins today, the first Sunday of Advent, the scriptures focus our attention on the business, the work, the process of time, because it is urgent. We start a new liturgical year, even as we know that the secular, the calendar year, is waning. And interestingly, in the responsorial psalm today, the psalm goes, "Make us turn to you, let us see your face, and we shall be saved." So what can we do about the lateness of the hour and our finite humanity? And the only response is to the reality of time is to do exactly what time does. What does time do? It moves. It moves. It moves us. And so we're invited, we're called to, kind of step out of the fatigue and the routine and make viable changes. And that's not just the work of Lent, but it's the work of Advent and every day as much as possible before the capacity to change is lost for good. And this is hard. It's hard for all of us because we are notoriously stagnant creatures. We like to get settled. We like to hunker down and go dormant, at least for a period of time. And so that's why we always have this change of seasons, the change of time to remind us not to be stagnant. And even when our lives aren't working and cause us suffering, the last thing we want to do is make changes. Can we take a pill for that? When it comes to the ache of mortality, the answer is no. What does not grow is already dying. So at this point, hearing about time, we might be ready to cry help or stop it. And that's appropriate because according to Isaiah, we need God. We need God, as we heard in that responsorial psalm in the first reading. We need God to do the saving. And we hear in the scriptures, God will return to us even though we're the ones who have wandered off to begin with in the first place. And so we hear Isaiah say, "Oh, that you would rend the heavens and come down." And that's what we are waiting for the Lord to come to us again and again, every Christmas, every year, every day. But when we really get stuck, God will move heaven and earth to unstick us if we are ready, if we at least try. And that beautiful imagery in that first reading today, God is the potter and we are the clay. I always have baptisms every first Sunday of the month, and I plan to use that for my homily for the baptism today for the 7 who are to be baptized, because isn't that what parents do? That the parents are, like the potter, forming the clay of their children into young children and older children. God is the potter, and we are the clay that we have, especially as roles as parents. And so we have this message of Jesus in the Advent Gospel as a perfect time to examine our lives and to wake up to the urgent call of life within us. Not just the life of Mary in the womb of Jesus in the womb of Mary, but all these opportunities, to think about what we can do. The old year is dying. Think of old habits that could likewise be put to rest. And so we have this time. The most challenging gift, I think, that we can give to ourselves today is to postpone the season of tinsel and twinkling lights and to try to embrace wholeheartedly the quiet time of purple and blue and Advent. It's really, when you think about it, it's the annual struggle to delay gratification, when the whole world seems to have plunged into pre-celebrating Christmas. And so the invitation is to think about time, to savor the deliciousness of waiting and anticipating. And remember, I wouldn't say this at the 9:30 Mass with all the children there, there's less children at this Mass, but remember how thrilling it was as a child, as a kid, to look forward to Christmas Eve, 3 weeks from today, and Christmas Day, and opening the presents, and just being gathered around the Christmas tree. And so as we begin the season of Advent, we're invited to step into the world of Isaiah and God's promises, and to know that, we are the clay in his hands, so constantly being reformed and refashioned. We're invited to step into the world of Mary, overshadowed and overtaken by grace, in the world of John the Baptist that we will hear the next 2 weeks. Prepare the way of the Lord. The celebration will come later, and as Jesus tells us, maybe we could think about that one word today in the gospel that comes up several times. Watch. Be watchful, be alert. You do not know when the time will come.